I'm John Davis, and I'm a local artist and craftsman from here in North Mississippi. And I made this centaur in 2014 when I lived in Water Valley, Mississippi. And I'm telling the story about it. They say it takes 1,000 hours to master something. So I didn't keep up with my time, but I worked every day, 7 days a week working on it till I finished it. All the problems I came up with, I crossed that bridge when I got to it, like doing a face or doing the hands. One of these days I will redo those hands. That's probably the weakest part of it. They're kind of gnarly, but I had great fun doing this, and I think a lot of people have had fun just having him out in public. So he's been in Oxford. I think I brought him in last Thursday. So he was a little bit controversial in Water Valley, but that's okay. Art's supposed to be a little bit. It's supposed to get people to thinking. If people got a smile out of him and a laugh, and he served his purpose and continues to. So I'm proud to have him here in Oxford. And appreciate Willie Wallace letting me show my centaur in front of his business here at Local Color on North Lamar in Oxford. He helps add some local color to Oxford, as he did in Water Valley. I went to Ole Miss a little bit in the 70s. I think I was here in 75 and 6. My mother worked here, and I had faculty staff scholarship. But I like Oxford, and I grew up in Bruce, so just down the road. And moved up here in the early 80s and moved to Water Valley. And I'm back in Lafayette County. I moved back here in 2017. 2014 in February on a Sunday night, I was over at my friend John Forsythe's, and he'd borrowed one of my books on making concrete sculpture, and neither one of us had done it, and he had started one the day before of the Venus of Willendorf. He did it like 4 feet tall, of this naked woman about 4 feet high, and anyway, he just started it, and I couldn't let him get ahead of me, and I told him I was going to start one in the morning and decided to do a centaur. And I got up the next morning and posted on Facebook that I was doing my first concrete sculpture, and I was going to put it in the sculpture park that was opening in March in Water Valley. And so I had great hopes of getting this centaur done within a month, and it took me from most of February into the first part of June to finish it. And I had been reading these books and thinking about making something out of concrete for a couple of years, and I got on the internet and books and designed this figure that I was going to make, and I had something going within a day or so, and was posting my pictures of my progress on Facebook, and had people following me, and I couldn't quit since I was out in public on Facebook showing showing my progress. So I just got totally wound up in it. I was doing it in my basement in my house in Water Valley. I learned a lot about sculpture. I was doing an animal figure, the horse part, and then the human figure, and doing the first time I'd ever done a face or hands, or so I had quite a learning curve in doing this. It was a very ambitious project, and at times it might look like I bit off more than I could chew, but I just kept at it. For the first project, I'm happy with the way it turned out, and I think people have really got a kick out of seeing a centaur out in public in a small town in Mississippi. So from there, I've made more sculptures. Have really enjoyed this. I've been a woodworker making chairs, and I wanted to get into something where I had total control over the shapes. And I was looking at some of these concrete sculptures, and it was affordable. Like if he was out of bronze, the foundry bill might have been $20,000 or $30,000 just to have him cast. And with concrete, you can get all your materials locally. I use rebar and wire, and I got white Portland cement from Smith Building Supply in Oxford, which is a little bit higher, but actually the materials weren't that high, so he turned out white instead of gray, like concrete would be. And the first time I painted him spotted, like kind of like a Dalmatian or a Appaloosa horse. And then the human part was I did in skin tone. And anyway, that lasted a little while, and then I learned most of what I learned on YouTube. YouTube was great. I watched all these tutorials from different people, and it's like sitting in a college classroom learning how to do this. All these different things that I had to learn, so I was learning how to do a bronze effect with paint, using metallic paints, and make something look like bronze. And I watched several different people and the way they did it, and I found this metallic paint at Walmart. So that was my source of paint. The price was right, and it turned out to be pretty durable. It's held up in the weather fairly well. The Centaurs held up for 5 years. Then the bronze paint was put on in 2016, so that's held up out in the weather for 3 years, and has done pretty well. It didn't work out to where I could put it in the sculpture park they were talking about in Water Valley for various reasons. A lot of things went on behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to, so I really don't know what went on with that. And I thought maybe I'd be able to show it in Oxford. Showed him the first time, and John Forsythe had a show in Pine Valley called the Pine Valley Music and Art Show, and in June of 2014. And I brought him back home for a little bit and showed him at the Crawdad Hole through Christmas. And people, the Crawdad Hole in Water Valley, and people were asking me in Water Valley, well, what are you going to do with him? There was a sculpture tour starting up in Oxford, and so I applied to show him in Oxford at the sculpture tour, and I just knew he'd be selected. So I told people I'd bring him to Oxford. And come to find out he wasn't selected, which, you know, I just thought, well, everybody loves the Centaur. How could he not be selected? But anyway, he wasn't. I didn't have a place, like a public place to put him. And I had him at home. And one day, I loaded him up in the back of my pickup. I had a big GMC full-size pickup, and it took me most of the morning to load him up, and I just took him to Oxford on a little tour of Oxford, because I told people in Water Valley I was taking him to Oxford, so I just rode him around Oxford, and it was a lot of fun. It was kind of like a one-man parade, and I went by the square, and went by the Lyceum, and Pat Lamar Park, and Meek Hall, and the Powerhouse, and brought him back to Water Valley and put him in the pocket park. I had 2 pickups. I had an old Ford Ranger, so I left my newer pickup with the Centaur in it in the pocket park for the weekend. And I called Mickey Howley, and I asked him if I could unload it, and he said he didn't think it was that great idea, so I had a backup plan. And I left him at Rasputin's restaurant, little restaurant where I had breakfast in front of the Dollar General in Water Valley, across from the little city park. So that's where he set up for last week.
How long had that been?
That was 2016 up until 2019. So he was there roughly 3 years. The reason I moved him is there was some controversy about my art, or my choices of subjects for art in Water Valley. I remember after I made the Centaur, and he was really well liked by most people, but I had heard that a man in Water Valley said that he was going to get rid of that Centaur. That's the last thing he did. So the Water Valley sports teams are named the Blue Devil, and the next piece that I made for Water Valley was a Water Valley Blue Devil, a full-size figure with a pitchfork and a tail, dressed up in a suit, metallic paint on his clothes. And he really had a lot of shock impact for some people. And that wound up being a lot of drama, and he wound up being stolen. I won't go into that story, but he wound up leaving Water Valley. Actually, I had 3 pieces at one time. There was this African-American street preacher in Water Valley, Brother Jimmy Moore, that had died around 2010 or 2011, and I had a good photograph of him. He wore these bright colored suits, and he was kind of a local. You say he personality in Water Valley. Everybody knew him, and he just like somebody off a movie set. When I moved down, I just couldn't believe him, and I got to know him a little bit. And anyway, so I did this full-size painting of Brother Jimmy Lee Moore on a sheet of hardy board, which is like concrete board that doesn't rot. And I had it on display in Martin Street. And I did that for the African American community in Water Valley, and he was a favorite piece. A lot of people liked him. And the Blue Devil, the weekend before he was stolen, was prom night in Water Valley, and in 2017, and a lot of the high school kids were getting their picture taken with the Blue Devil, and before a week was out, he wound up missing. But that's a whole different story. Brother Jimmy's picture wound up missing back in the spring of 2019, which not that long ago. And so that was 2 out of 3. And the Centaur, my first one, had been in Water Valley since 2014. And I got a call one day from the man that owns the lumber yard in Water Valley. And he told me that he would move him anywhere I wanted to move him free of charge with his lumber delivery truck in the lift. That I said, okay, let's wait till after the watermelon carnival. I wanted, he's downtown, close to where they have the street dance and the carnival, so I wanted to leave him there where folks could get to see him when they came back to Water Valley. So the next week he gave me a call one morning about 9:30, and I met him at Water Valley at 10:30, and by noon we had him unloaded and in place in front of Local Color on North Lamar in Oxford. So Willie Wallace let me put it in front of his business, and so he's moved to Oxford, and Willie seems happy with him there. He said he was happy for him to be there, and I've got a little feedback from a few people around Oxford and think he looks good there. So I've got other things going on, and I enjoy seeing my art shown, and I think it's a good place. Good place to show him. I've lived in Oxford for a good many years, and it's probably lived as long in Oxford as I have anywhere, or in Lafayette County. So this is kind of home.
I think it'll be a cultural landmark.
Good. Thank
Well,
you.
I'm glad that Willie let me bring it up here to Oxford, and I think it's in a great place, and maybe it'll add to some of the local color up here with a business that's been here for a few decades, the local color, local landmark here in Oxford.
The teacher would ring the bell for the class to begin, and then she would ring the bell when school was dismissed. Classroom. Imagine how humiliated they would be, or at least I would be, if I had to sit up there with my back to the wall, or my back to the class. This is typical of what they bring for lunch. It would be like a cold biscuit with sausage, or a piece of cheese, or fruit, or even a baked sweet potato. And then they got water from the well. They would use this to put it down in the water, and then they would all drink out of the same dinner tin. And the teacher would take turns staying with the students. She'd spend 2 weeks with each student in the class, and the family was responsible for providing food and doing her laundry. And the daddy would bring wood to keep the stove going in the wintertime. So it was neat. I don't know how many kids would like their teacher to come live with them, no doubt, for 2 weeks. The Christmas decorations, they made those Santa Clauses on that tree for the corn cob.
Oh, that's neat.
And then they used a cotton ball roll to make the snowmen. They might get maybe a candy cane for Christmas and an orange or an apple, and maybe something home, a toy that was homemade. Didn't have a lot of My name is Joan Carr. I'm a retired teacher from New Albany Schools. And this is a lot of fun showing kids that come through. Yesterday we had like 13 different classrooms from different school systems come to hear, about how schools used to be in Pioneer Day.
What is the thing that you found most fascinating when you were studying about this? Yeah.
The thing I found most fascinating was when they had, in the summertime when it was hot, they would have a birdhouse similar to that Williamsburg type clay birdhouse, and they would put it in the tree by the school building, or they would put it in the window, and the birds would build nests and lay their eggs. And then as the birds matured, if an insect, a fly or a mosquito flew into the classroom, the birds would fly in and eat them. So that's how they kept the insects down. And they used the paddle a lot, and they also used something called the devil's walking cane, which to me seems to be very cruel. That when they talked about hitting them with the rod, this has thorns on it. And so can you imagine how bad that would hurt to get 4 or 5 licks with that? And when cotton season was, the cotton was ripe, they would close the school, and the boys and girls would stay at home and help their parents on the farm until the cotton was picked. And then when it was all picked, they would come back to school and nobody was counted absent. Probably the teacher had to help too. I'm not sure, but probably she did.
I bet you can ride a stick horse, can't you? Yeah. Hey!
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Tell me your name and what you're doing.
I'm Peyton Meeks, and I'm doing a little bit of blacksmithing.
How long have you been doing this?
Just a year or so.
How did you get started?
I just was interested in it and started looking for ways to be able to do it.
Cool. I'm gonna watch you do it a little bit.
Okay.
So turning the handle, what does that do?
It just gives me different angles to hit it with the hammer to get it off flat like I want it.
Okay, and then when you're winding up over there?
That is blowing the forge. It creates more air for the fire, feeds the fire, get it hotter.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Well, thank you.
He's got the best chance.
Watch out, y'all.
Go.
What'd you bet?
Take a trip jump, right? 4.930. Go.
Uh-oh.
Keep going, girl.
She done lost a shoe.
5.77.
You don't get a mulligan for a stolen shoe?
6.2. Go. Go around it. 6.4. Go.
Yes.
7.20. Go.
She thought about it.
First place is Carl Smith.
Carl. Who we got winners?
My trusty Steve.
Carl Smith. Second place is Dylan Powell.
Where's Dylan?
Dylan.
Nice job, Dylan.
Third place is Kent Smith.
Way to go, Kent. Woohoo! 1, 2, 3. Good job, boys.
Okay, tell me your names.
Carl Smith, Dylan Powell, Elliot Kim Smith.
What are you doing?
I'm turning butter.
Is it easy?
No, it's not.
How do you know when it's done?
You open it up and then if it's all like solid and stuff, like if it looks like butter, then you know you're done.
Can I look inside?
See, like it's not quite done, which it's harder to do out in the heat.
Native American film steak. That's how they have to formula. You try this one? That's cornmeal, but that's several, probably 100 years later. After that, they invented this and made making cornmeal a whole lot easier. Cornmeal is used for making cornbread and all sorts of things like that. He'd be a little tough. Greg Hollingsworth.
And what are you doing here today?
I am talking about how people used to shell the corn, chuck the corn, and make cornmeal.
Okay.
So what they would do is, way back in the day, they used to take the corn, pick them from hand, and then you would shell the corn like this. This one was a little. And then you do this. This would. You would shell all the corn hulls off and then spit the cob down here. Then you would take corn, put it here, and this machine would grind it up and turn it into cornmeal, which you can use to make cornbread and all sorts of things. And that is just a more primitive way to make cornmeal. A lot harder. Yeah, it takes a lot more time. That was used by the Native Americans and Pilgrims. It's a lot like this. You take the stick and you just have to grind the corn into cornmeal, basically. It took a whole lot more time and a whole lot more effort.
I never can't remember how many kids you had. Neither of me had a couple of boys.
Yeah. 3 altogether. Allie.
Get it?
Can I go to eat with my classmates?
What grade are you in, Eden? 3rd grade? Oh, somebody in the 3rd grade. 8? 8?
You want to come in and see inside our store? Sure. Come on in. Looks like I need to get the broom again.
Tell your name on camera.
Oh, hi, my name is Susie Brown, and I'm from Ingomar.
So what have we got?
Well, this is a general store. People didn't get in their cars and drive to the store, so a lot of people only came to the store once a month or maybe even longer, so we tried to keep a little bit of everything. Food, pots and pans, dishes, jars for canning. You can get your shoes fixed when you come to the store. You picked up your mail. We were also at the post office. And we also kept lots of materials so ladies could make dresses, because everything was homemade then. And so we just, you could special order stuff, but it might take it a couple of weeks to come in. So we could, if you broke a glass, we could get some stuff like that. This is one of the first telephones. We had a lot of fun with the kids because there are no buttons to push, there's no dial, and I've gotten all kind of answers on how to get this phone to work. So after I let them guess for a while, I told them that there was a switch box and an operator, and she connected the phones. I said, well, just talking to the phone. And I'm like, can't do that. There's no computer in that phone. It doesn't know. But the biggest surprise has been no air conditioning and no video games. Well, what do? I'm saying you play outside or you work outside. You don't go inside unless it's time to eat or time to sleep. But of course, those pesky old men come in here and play checkers and get on my nerves. But it's been a great week.
Names are, I'm Colin Smith, and this is
Callie Davis.
and we're talking about the Chickasaw Indians. They had the Chickasaw Indians originated in southeast parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, and after the government made them sell their land, they then moved to Oklahoma, and that led to the Trail of Tears and all that. The Choctaw and the Chickasaw were kind of the same group, but they broke into two. That's what made them Choctaw and Chickasaw. They when they was moving to different lands and migrating, they decided to split. This is a game they used to play, stick and ball. And whenever they go to war, they would either go to war or they would play this game. And the losers probably die, depending on who won or lost. The reason they was going to war for, they would get that. And they had plenty of tools and weapons to use. They would use this for a weapon, except this would be rock. They would carve a rock out and use a piece of wood. They would use this as for arrows and spears to be able to kill and eat. They would make tools out of this, like to garden, or they would use it for handles for the spears or knives they make. They would use a rock like this to chip away and to form the arrowhead. They made tons of pottery out of Mississippi clay or other clay from other states, and whenever they killed an animal, they would make a hide out of it. And the bottom side, you can see it's leatherish. And they would use that for satchels or pouches or their clothes. Women would do the clothes, and men would mainly hunt and fight. Her grandmother made these, and we're just wearing them for the...
Back in the earlier days when the Chickasaw Indians lived in New Albany, instead of wearing like the brown suede looking Indian stuff, they would wear these string dresses, and they usually be like long sleeve and thick, but we made it short sleeve since it's hot weather. But they would wear a string, like it'd be strings going all the way down, and then you have usually like a string in your hair, and then the men usually would shave their head and then have like a little piece right there.
Clyde, he don't barely move an inch. Tambourine tied to his tail. You can hear him moaning, you can hear him wail. Well, Clyde played electric bass. Played it with finesse and grace. Sit on the porch, you ain't got no shoes. Just a picking the bass and moaning the blues. Nicely done.
Thank you. I'm gonna get you to talk to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is it at 2 we're done?
It's at 2, yeah.
And then you would see me break my thread.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Tanner Jenkins. I am portraying as Dr. Jenkins today.
in the clinic of the 19th century medicine.
Okay, so talk about what we got.
What we have here is what the 19th century used as medicines. There is different procedures into curing illnesses, as bee stings, the regular cuts and sores, and the toothaches. Back in that time, they really did not have enough resources because they were always moving. They're always traveling from place to place, being nomads. So they used plants and other herbs to cure their illnesses. Because of the time, the medicine has not evolved like it is today. Medicine has not became what it is today. So they really had to use their mind through plants and different herbs to cure illnesses. The goldenrod is actually for allergies. You use that. You can also put some of the goldenrod in water, and you can place it in water and extract the medicine out, and then you can drink it. But you can also, for winter time, you can hang the goldenrod up. You can dry it out, and you can crush it up. So this is a dried goldenrod, and this is actually for the winter time. This is actually used for herbal tea, and you only use half of it because at the time there's not much resources, because if we rely on herbs and plants, we have seasonal resources. So doctors had to come up with inventive ways of restoring and holding up the resources for medicine.
Yes, we're learning a lot today about how medicine was practiced 200 years ago. The pharmacy was in the woods, and it actually worked. And these new doctors today are listening to what old folks found out and practicing new medicine, finding new medicines from plants. About 80% of all our new plants, of all our new medicines are from plants. Another 15% from mushrooms. Did you know that?
I did not know that, actually.
So he's done a good job, hasn't he? That is great. Absolutely great. I think he's going to make a good doctor, too, one day.
Hopefully. I really hope so.
What is your favorite medicine plant?
My favorite medicine plant? Well, of course, I don't use all that I teach about, but some I do use. I use goldenrod for allergies.
Tell about what you told us on the bus about how it's not the goldenrod you're allergic to.
People think they're allergic to goldenrod. That's out there blooming right now. Ragweed grows right beside it. Ragweed has a very inconspicuous green bloom that you really don't ever notice. But ragweed spores, and we're allergic to it. So God put goldenrod out there right beside it for allergies. And it's a wonderful allergy plant. It was used during the Boston Tea Party. They were looking for teas, and they found this one to be the best tea, and goldenrod, and they even sold it back to England. And it got the name Liberty Tea. Very good tasting tea. Another wonderful tidbit about goldenrod is Mr. Ford put tires on his tea model made from goldenrod. Has 7% rubber in it. And his good friend, Mr. Thomas Alva Edison, hybridized it to the point where he was getting 12% rubber from goldenrod. And then they discovered the rubber plant in South America, and that was the end of that. Another one I use very, very, very much is plantain. This was brought here by the colonists. It's not a native. And because it was such a good medicine, it's called plantain. And they gave it to the Indians, shared it, and everywhere they moved, they took it with them. because it was such a good medicine for so many things. It treats spider bites. It really cures brown recluse spider bites. It treats bee and wasp stings. It treats cuts and sores, and it treats poison ivy. It's just a fantastic plant. So I put it on grandchildren all the time.
Hi. We're inside the millinery shop, which is a display at the Union County Museum. This is a part of the Pioneer Days, which is in place here this weekend. We have a display of early period hats that have been donated to the museum, and they run anywhere from the 1920s up until the present day. We also have a display of pioneer bonnets, which our visitors, especially the younger ones, have been encouraged to try on, and we have talked about the materials that are used to make the bonnets and the fact that they were all handmade. We also have with us Gigi, who is from Blue Mountain College and is a volunteer helping us out here this weekend. Millinery is the name, basically, of the hat maker's shop. During the early times of our country, things like hats and boots and bags were very expensive because they were handmade, and you were, as far as the hats are concerned, you would be measured and your hat would be made to your specifications. So if you wanted to match it to a very special dress, then those colors would be used. This kind of craft work was very time consuming. Because, of course, at the time there were no automatic machines or super glue. Everything was needle and thread. This is one of the things that we try to make our public aware of, is the craftsmanship that has helped to build our country into what it is today. The fact that we are not afraid to try to do things on our own or to work together to produce things.
I'm Gigi Lewis, and I go to Blue Mountain College, and I'm here to volunteer today for the Pioneer Days. One of the things that we have shown in the millinery shop is the dresser set, which is a comb and mirror and brush. And those are a matching set. The mirror we used to show the girls what they looked like when they tried on their hat, along with the brush. A lot of them like to brush their hair with it, and that brush actually has horsehair on it. It's not plastic, and so that's pretty cool for the kids to see and get to see that. And then the comb is very fine with its needles across of it, normally used when the ladies have longer hair. And so the kids really enjoyed to look at that and use those things, and it was fun getting to show them what that was about.
My name is Taylor Kelly, and I'm making cloth dolls. Okay. You start off with a big scrap, and you take cotton and you pick some of the seeds out, and then you put that in the very middle and you tie it around to make the head, and then you take a smaller scrap and you roll it up and tie it on both ends to make the arms, and then you stick it in between the two pieces for the head, for the body, and then you tie it around the waist, and then you take the two loose ends, and you can either leave them loose, like this, or you can tie them off together to make legs. And then you take other big pieces that you want, and you cut a circle in the very middle for either a dress or like a tunic or something, and you stick it over the head, and you can add belts and scarves and little like do-rag hats and stuff, whatever you want.
My name is Eloise Bennett, and I live here in New Albany, and I do cornshuck doll making, and I make them I can make them from either the corn grown in the field, which is this one right here, and it's like the field corn, and I just turn it over on itself and make a head out of it, and then I put arms in between it, and the corn shucks were used back in Pioneer Day. When people came over here from Europe, they had never seen corn before. Well, this is the first time that they had anything to do with corn, and so they learned how to make it, and the Indians taught them how to do things and make things from it. They made like the corn shuck dolls that I make, and they also made seats out of the corn shucks, and they took the corn stalks and made little horses for their kids to play with outside. And it's just a great thing to get kids together and help them to learn what pioneering was all about. I use pieces of material for the clothes. I remember my brothers brought back a little corn shuck doll from Mount Vernon, and so for some reason I kept that little doll, and when I found it one time, I thought, well, I'm going to learn how to do that. So I got a pattern, decided to make some, so I've been making them ever since. And it's probably been about 7 or 8 years since I started making them.
Can I taste your song? How about that? Okay, look. See that part? There it is. And you're going to keep that. So there's one in between. Keep it. And then taste it. You got some working too, every time. Good, you got your fingers. Start right here. Bum, 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 bum. There you go. Just play it down. Press it down. All three of them. Now skip. So, do you know the name of it?
It's a song called Cold.
All right, you play that, and I'm gonna play the
All right,
chorus.
dear.
Okay.
Bye.
Good job. You got to learn to put that other hand in there. So, do you take piano lessons?
Get out the picture.
Keep it. You do. And I'm going to play.
You go down there and say, I can play that piano. Make a noise.
Slow down.